Yeah, so when Einstein proposed his theory, it was a complete revolution to what was there before, Newton's gravity, and a completely different view of how the universe sort of interacts in terms of gravity. And he made predictions, and scientists at his best were sort of taking his prediction, taking observations and data, confronting the theory with those results. And that's fascinating. And it, of course, involves these objects like black holes, Newton stars, everything that comes in science fiction. So it's inherently very fascinating objects, very extreme physics, and you can do precision experiments. So it's not like sort of taking a beautiful shot of the sky and interpret it in terms of what star is doing what. So it's hardcore physics in trying to have some real precision experiments, and that is the fun of it. You can combine physics with love of astronomy. That's my personal motivation, at least. So I'm working on pulsars. These are cosmic lighthouses that are like clocks in space. And we use these clocks to test in this theory of gravity, like general relativity. And so my personal top two is basically I showed that one pulsar is undergoing what we call precession caused by relativistic effects, and I was basically the first one to show that this was consistent with the theory. And then later I was part of a team that discovered so-called double pulsar, two active lighthouses orbiting each other in just 2.5 hours. And that was fascinating as well, because these are sort of the best tests that we have for general relativity for up to recently anyway, and probably for some more time to come. And so I was leading this test of general relativity using this experiment, and it keeps giving, because we find with more precision we find new effects that weren't there in the past. So we unpeel sort of the onion and find more and more layers of interesting stuff lying underneath, and that keeps us going. I think so. Well, so far it has been proven right all the time, or at least the data is consistent with the theory. We can never actually say theory is correct. We can only say theory is consistent, or at least not wrong. And that's an interesting detail. But I would like to prove Einstein wrong. So far it has passed all these tests with flying colors, but if the theory would be proven wrong, we would learn so much more, because it would, like Newton's theory was proven wrong eventually, and it showed that it's only an approximation to what we now call general relativity, but general relativity could be the approximation to something even deeper. And we know it's not consistent with quantum mechanics, so eventually actually we expect it to fail somewhere. And to find this condition, what is parameter space, or whatever the observation is that brings us that revelation, would tell us so much more about the underlying laws of physics. So it would be very exciting. Yes, the Event Horizon Telescope is a global collaboration. Scientists all across the world, and Europe plays a major part, funded by the European Research Council. Our part of the project is called Black Hole Cam, with colleagues in Holland, Heine Falke, and Frankfurt with Luciano Zolla, and we are part of this big team. And what we try to do is trying to take an image of the supermassive black hole in the center of our Milky Way. No one has ever seen a black hole. We have now wonderful data by LIGO about black holes. We didn't expect them to exist, at least on that mass range, but never actually has seen a black hole and basically proven the existence of the event horizon, which is this sharp boundary basically of a black hole, and for which no information can escape. But in the center of the Milky Way we have hot gas, hot plasma, which provides bright radio background, and then we have this supermassive 4 million mass heavy black hole in front of it. And so we should be able to see the shadow of this black hole in front of this bright gas. And this shadow, this picture, should be modified by gravity of the black hole. So the idea is that if you take an image and compare sort of the distortion of the image by gravity with what our understanding of a black hole is, we can prove the general relativity prediction of those black holes. Whether this is successful or not, we will see. We are very optimistic that we get some picture, how good the image quality is. We will see. It's certainly, we're having some very good data taken last year, and we're analyzing them right now. But more data, more years, better telescopes will always continue to improve this picture. And then in the European part of the project, in the CSC grant project, we would like to find also a pulsar that orbits this black hole in the center. And that would give us completely independent information on the black hole. And by combining these two information, we can learn even so much more, because this independent information would tell us, basically predict what the image should look like if GR is correct, and it also depends on the orientation of this gas, and compare it with the image. And that would be the perfect match. Finding a pulsar around the black hole is very, very difficult. It's sort of a high-risk part of the project, but we're going to try. So we are certain that we take an image, and it would be nice to have a pulsar to sort of have independent information to support interpretation of that image. Whether we will get that part, we will see, but we'll certainly get an image, and then it will be very exciting. Even if the first image quality may not be perfect, it will be the first image of an event horizon, should it exist. And so it will be very interesting to see, difficult to rate. So we'll see how it goes. So Hawking radiation is kind of virtual particles becoming part of it in reality, and so the black hole becomes a little bit smaller because it loses energy. The black holes of those sizes, Hawking radiation will not make much difference. It will be very interesting to find very, very tiny black holes which may then evaporate because they're losing energy and so they disappear. And then actually there was some prediction by Martin Rees, a famous British astronomer, who predicted if that happens, we should see a radio pulse. And so some people in the past have looked for these radio pulses. But in our experiment, Hawking radiation is probably not relevant. So more relevant is really the big motion of the gas around the black hole and how the light is distorted by the gravitational field. That's the first effect. Maybe underlying there will be still Hawking radiation, but our experiment is probably not showing anything about that. Yeah, I think he has become famous because of his incredible difficult circumstances and fate. But yes, as a physicist, we recognize his work. He would be even famous in the physics world without his handicaps. And it's just a contribution that is given to understanding gravity, black holes, and the universe as such, which make him an icon even in the physics world. That it became popular or well known to the outside world is certainly part of it due to his handicap and his illness. But also, I think, how he dealt with it. I mean, he defied the odds. He lived much longer than any doctor predicted. And so it's this determination, which I think sometimes only physicists have, which kept him going, I think. And so he was a remarkable person, that's clear. But he was remarkable also for the physics he did, not only for his circumstances. Yeah, I think we knew gravitational wave exists since 1974, when binary pulsar showed the first evidence for gravitational waves, and that was, by the way, awarded with Nobel Prize in 1993. So we knew gravitational wave exists, so we knew LIGO would detect something at some point. It was just a matter of how sensitive LIGO has to be to see something. And they made it. It's a beautiful experiment. It's a super high precision instrument, something that's never been built before. And indeed, what they did is opening a complete new window to the universe. We're seeing now objects that we didn't think were possible astrophysically, like this massive stellar mass black holes, 70, 50, 100 solar mass. We didn't expect from a stellar evolution point of view that they should exist, but LIGO found them. We saw the first merger of two neutron stars in August last year, and it confirmed some prediction of what happens and produced some other interesting facets, like that all gold is probably produced in such neutron star mergers. So we now have really like radio and X-ray and gamma astronomy open completely new window in electromagnetic spectrum. Now we have a completely new access, new roads to understanding the universe in a completely different way. And just like in the electromagnetic spectrum, LIGO is just covering one frequency range. There are different frequency range where we can study different objects in the gravitational wave spectrum. Like if you go away from Earth and have this space satellite LISA, you can observe supermassive black holes like that of the Sun and other objects. And you can go to even lower frequencies again using pulsars, and that's some other experiment we do to observe very, very low frequency gravitational waves, and they come from the most massive super black holes we have in the universe, or used to have. They're merged by now. And so, yes, it's a completely new access to the universe. And with new access, we find new unexpected things, and that's going to be the exciting one. It's not the sort of what we expect to find. It's the new thing, the completely unexpected that will make us the most interesting headlines in the future to come. It's a fair question. We're spending taxpayers' money, and they want to know what comes back for them. I think the answer is twofold. I think, first of all, it's curiosity-driven science that we do, so it makes us different from as humans. We have the ability to ask these questions, and it's like going to the opera, going to museums, enjoying culture. It's part of that. But of course, if it's physics, it's also will be used somewhere. When quantum mechanics was proposed, no one thought there's any practical use. It was a very obscure theory. And yet, all digital equipment, everything in the digital world around us depends on quantum mechanical effects. I mentioned the evaporating black holes that people try to find. People went out for this and developed new techniques, which actually ended up in Wi-Fi. You can follow the sort of the attempt from finding these evaporating black holes caused by Hawking radiation all the way to the invention of Wi-Fi. It's one story. The same algorithm that they developed to detect the radio pulse ended up in the protocol for the Wi-Fi. And now there are tens of billions of Wi-Fi devices around the world, and everyone is using and take it for granted to be connecting to everything. Or another example is the laser. Also sort of based on some theories that Einstein helped to develop. There was no practical application of a laser when it was invented in the 1960s. And now it's used for medical purposes. We have a laser printer, we have the memory disk. All our fiber communication uses lasers these days. And so it may take some time for this sort of strange physics, even as remote as it seems to be, to end up in some application. But if it's good physics, it will happen. And if it's just to understand how the universe works, I mean, that's a lofty goal that we should try to achieve. So fundamental research always pays off. It produces ideas, it produces people, and if it's just motivation for kids to study sciences and engineering, I think, which then help us building us a better world, I think that's enough justification, and we're happy to contribute to that. Very personally, I think I still would like to find a pulsar orbiting a black hole. It doesn't have to be the Sagittarius A star, but a stellar black hole would also be very fun. So personally, that's my personal goal. That would be great. I would also like to understand what dark energy is, but that's probably a more complicated task. But finding a black hole, it could be my data already, so I'll keep on looking.